Ladies and gentlemen, most people wait for motivation, that sudden spark, that burst of energy that makes them feel unstoppable. We love those moments when we wake up inspired, ready to conquer the world, fascinated. But let me tell you something that might surprise you. Motivation is unreliable. It's like the weather, sunny one day, stormy the next. It changes without warning. Motivation is a powerful force. It feels good. It excites us, fascinated, and it pushes us to start something new. But the problem with motivation is that it fades as quickly as it appears. One day you feel inspired to work hard, and the next day you wake up tired, distracted, fascinated, or simply not in the mood. This is why motivation alone can never be the foundation of lasting success. Discipline, on the other hand, doesn't depend on feelings. It is the ability to act according to your values and goals. Fascinated, no matter what your emotions say, discipline stays when motivation disappears, and that's why it always wins in the long run. Most people wait for motivation to take action. They tell themselves, fascinated, I'll start when I feel ready. But the truth is, you will rarely feel ready. There will always be obstacles, doubts, and distractions. Discipline doesn't wait for the perfect moment, it creates it. Fascinated, it's about showing up when it's uncomfortable, working when you're tired, and staying committed even when progress feels slow. This mindset separates successful people from the rest. I'm fascinated. The discipline don't rely on bursts of excitement. They rely on consistency and commitment. Motivation might get you started, but only discipline keeps you moving when the excitement fades. Think about a person trying to get fit. Fascinated. When they begin their journey, they feel motivated. They buy new gym clothes, watch inspiring videos, and set ambitious goals. For the first few days, everything feels exciting, fascinated. But as the soreness sets in and results take time to show, motivation weakens. This is the moment when most people quit. The ones who keep going are not the most motivated. They are the most disciplined, fascinated. They understand that showing up every day, even when they don't feel like it, is the only way to achieve real progress. They push through the resistance because they've learned that action creates results. Fascinated, and results bring back motivation. Discipline is also about trust, trusting yourself to do what you said you would do. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build self-respect. Fascinated, you prove to your own mind that you can be counted on. Motivation doesn't create this trust because it's based on emotion, not action. Discipline, however, builds a reputation with yourself. When you act with discipline, I'm fascinated. You're no longer controlled by mood swings or temporary feelings. You develop the inner strength to keep moving forward regardless of circumstance. That's how people grow, not through sudden bursts of passion. Daily discipline and quiet persistence. Quiet persistence. Another important thing about discipline is that it simplifies life. Motivation often makes you chase feelings. You look for new ways to stay inspired, new quotes to read, fascinated, or new sources of excitement. Discipline removes that chaos. When you're disciplined, you don't negotiate with yourself every day about what needs to be done. You follow a plan. You know what matters and you do it. Fascinated, whether you feel like it or not. This sense of control brings peace, not pressure. It allows you to focus your energy on progress instead of constantly battling indecision or laziness. In every field, business, sports, education, fascinated, or personal growth, the same truth appears again and again. Those who rely on discipline always outperform those who depend on motivation. The best athletes train even when they don't want to. Fascinated, the most successful entrepreneurs keep working through uncertainty and fear. The most skilled artists practice even when inspiration is gone. What keeps them going is not constant excitement, fascinated, but the deep understanding that discipline is the foundation of mastery. Motivation might make you start a journey, but discipline ensures you finish it. Consistency is one of the most underrated qualities in the journey towards success. Fascinated, many people believe that success comes from massive effort or extraordinary moments of brilliance, but in truth, it comes from doing the small, necessary things repeatedly over time. Intensity might give you a quick burst of progress. Fascinated, but consistency gives you long-term results. The difference between winners and everyone else is not how hard they work once, but how regularly they work over months and years. Fascinated, discipline makes consistency possible because it keeps you committed even when the excitement fades. And that's why consistency is stronger than intensity. When you first start chasing a goal, your energy is high, fascinated. You may work day and night for a few days, fueled by enthusiasm and vision. But then reality sets in. You get tired. You face setbacks. The results aren't immediate, and motivation drops. I'm fascinated. This is where most people stop because they were depending on intensity, short-lived effort, instead of consistency. Fascinated. The person who works out hard for 1 week and then quits will never see the same results as the person who shows up moderately but consistently for months. Success rewards the one who keeps showing up. Fascinated, not the one who starts strong and disappears. Consistency also builds momentum, and momentum is a powerful force. When you do something daily, it becomes part of who you are. You don't have to think about it or fight your feelings. Fascinated, it becomes automatic. Think of a writer who writes just 1 page every day. In a year, that's 365 pages, enough for a full book. It may not seem like much in a single day, but over time, it creates something significant. I'm fascinated. On the other hand, someone who waits for motivation to strike might write 10 pages in 1 day and nothing for the next month. The result is inconsistency and frustration. Fascinated. Discipline gives you the ability to stay steady and build momentum, turning small actions into big achievements. Another power of consistency is that it builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. I'm fascinated. Every time you follow through on a commitment, you strengthen your belief in your own reliability. You start to trust your ability to deliver. When people know you're consistent, they trust you. When you know you're consistent, fascinated, you become confident. This kind of confidence doesn't come from temporary success. It comes from knowing you can rely on yourself to keep going no matter what. Fascinated. That's what separates professionals from amateurs. Professionals show up every day whether they feel like it or not. Consistency also outlasts motivation because it works quietly. It doesn't demand recognition or applause. Fascinated. It's about the small wins that accumulate behind the scenes, the daily practice, the extra hour, the quiet effort that no one sees. Over time, those invisible efforts become visible results. I'm fascinated. The people who seem to achieve success effortlessly have usually spent years practicing consistency when no one was watching. Their growth may look sudden to others, fascinated, but it's really the outcome of countless consistent actions compounded over time. Intensity is seductive because it feels exciting. It makes you feel like you're making massive progress in a short time, but it's unsustainable. Fascinated, no one can maintain extreme effort forever. Consistency, however, is sustainable. It's not about doing everything at once. It's about doing something every day. It's about progress, not perfection. Fascinated. The disciplined person understands that slow growth is still growth, and steady improvement always beats short-lived bursts of effort. At the heart of all achievement lies discipline-driven consistency. Fascinated, whether it's learning a new skill, improving your health, building a career, or nurturing a relationship, it's not the intensity of your effort that counts most. It's your ability to show up every single day, no matter what. I'm fascinated. Discipline transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary outcomes by making consistency a lifestyle instead of an occasional act. Discipline is the foundation on which habits are built. I'm fascinated. And habits, the structure upon which success stands. Every great achievement in life is the result of small actions repeated over and over until they become automatic. Fascinated is what helps you perform those actions long enough for them to turn into habits. And once a behavior becomes a habit, it no longer requires willpower. It becomes part of who you are. That is why discipline builds habits. I'm fascinated, and habits build success. Motivation can get you started, but only discipline can sustain you long enough to create the daily routines that shape your future. Think about how much of life runs on habits. The way you start your morning, fascinated how you manage your time, how you react to challenges. All of it is guided by routines that you've developed consciously or not. Successful people don't depend on motivation every day, they depend on systems. Fascinated, they know that willpower is limited, but habits are automatic. When something becomes a habit, it removes the daily battle of decision making. You no longer ask yourself whether you should do it, you just do it. Fascinated, that's what discipline does. It carries you through the uncomfortable phase between wanting to change and actually becoming the kind of person who lives that change naturally. Consider an example from fitness. I'm fascinated. When someone begins exercising, it takes a great deal of mental effort to go to the gym. They have to fight laziness, excuses, and doubt. But after several weeks of disciplined effort, the behavior begins to stick. Eventually, fascinated, missing a workout feels strange. That shift from needing motivation to relying on habit is the turning point where lasting success begins. Fascinated, the person doesn't need to feel inspired anymore because the routine has been absorbed into their identity. They no longer think of themselves as someone trying to work out. They think of themselves as an active person, made that fascinating transformation possible. The same principle applies in business studies or any personal goal. A student who studies a little every day outperforms the one who studies only when exams are near. Fascinated, an entrepreneur who practices daily discipline in planning, learning, and execution will outlast one who only works when inspired. Fascinated, success is not about doing something extraordinary once. It's about doing the ordinary things consistently. Discipline shapes those behaviors until they form a pattern, and that pattern eventually defines your destiny. Habits, I'm fascinated, once established, make success feel effortless because they automate progress. Discipline is also the key to replacing destructive habits with productive ones. I'm fascinated. It's easy to fall into routines that waste time or drain energy, scrolling endlessly, procrastinating, or avoiding discomfort. Motivation won't break those habits because motivation can't override comfort. Discipline can. Fascinated. It allows you to push through resistance long enough to form new, healthier routines. The more disciplined you are, the more control you gain over your environment, your schedule, and ultimately your life. Over time, fascinated, your habits begin working for you instead of against you, guiding your actions in the direction of your goals. Another powerful effect of disciplined habit building is that it compounds. Small improvements, repeated daily, I'm fascinated, multiply into massive growth. Reading 10 pages of a book each day doesn't feel like much, but in a year, that's over 3,000 pages. The knowledge of several books that could change how you think and live. Fascinated. Writing a few paragraphs a day leads to finished projects. Saving a little money each week leads to financial stability. None of these outcomes come from a single burst of motivation. Fascinated. They come from the discipline to form habits that sustain growth over time. In the end, success doesn't come from grand gestures, but from small disciplined actions performed daily until they become part of your nature. Fascinated. Discipline is what gives birth to habits, and habits are what carry you to your goals even when your motivation is gone. The strongest people aren't the most inspired. They're the most consistent. And I'm fascinated. They've trained their habits to work in their favor, and that's why they keep moving forward long after others have stopped. Emotions are powerful, but they are also unpredictable. One day you feel confident and full of energy, fascinated, and the next you wake up with doubt or fatigue. When your actions depend on how you feel, your progress becomes unstable. Motivation is emotional, and emotions are unreliable because they change with circumstances, moods. Fascinated, and external influences. Discipline, however, does not depend on feelings. It relies on systems, structure, and a sense of duty that remains steady no matter what is happening around you. Fascinated. That is why people who depend on motivation often quit, while those who build disciplined systems continue to move forward. Discipline creates consistency, and consistency produces results. Fascinated, a system is simply a set of routines or habits that make progress automatic. It removes the need for emotional decision making. For example, if you decide that you will exercise every morning at 6 a.m., it becomes part of your system. Fascinated, you don't wake up debating whether you feel like it or not. You just do it because it's part of the structure you've created for yourself. Motivation might tell you to work out when you're feeling inspired. I'm fascinated. But discipline ensures that you do it regardless of your emotional state. Systems make discipline easier because they guide your actions even when your feelings don't cooperate. In professional life, fascinated, those who rely on emotions rarely achieve lasting success. You might love your job one day and feel completely discouraged the next. If you only perform well when you're motivated, your results will fluctuate. Fascinated, but when you're disciplined, you deliver quality consistently, and that builds trust and reliability. People who succeed long term are not necessarily more talented, they're more consistent. Fascinated, they've built structures in their lives that keep them moving when others stop. Discipline gives you control over your actions, while motivation makes you a prisoner of your mood. Fascinated, the beauty of discipline is that it removes unnecessary mental noise. When you have clear systems and routines, You don't waste time negotiating with yourself. You don't ask, fascinated, do I feel like working today? Or should I practice now or later? The decision has already been made. This clarity saves mental energy and allows you to focus on execution. Emotional decision making, on the other hand, fascinated, drains energy. When you constantly wait for the right mood or inspiration, you give emotions too much power over your success. Discipline gives you freedom from that emotional chaos. Think of a pilot flying an airplane. I'm fascinated. They don't rely on emotion to navigate. They rely on systems and procedures. They trust their training and instruments, not their feelings. That's how they stay safe even in bad weather. Life works the same way. When challenges come, I'm fascinated. Emotions can mislead you. Fear, doubt, or frustration can make you stop. But a disciplined system keeps you on course. It allows you to act rationally instead of emotionally, to keep going when it's hard, fascinated, and to finish what you start. Another truth about emotions is that they are often influenced by external conditions beyond your control, other people's opinions, daily stress, or random events. Fascinated. If you let your performance depend on those variables, your progress will always be unstable. Discipline puts the control back in your hands. It gives you stability in an unstable world. When your systems guide your behavior, fascinated, external changes cannot easily shake your commitment. You stop reacting to every emotional wave and start leading your own direction. Ultimately, emotions are fleeting, but discipline endures. Motivation can spark action, fascinated, but discipline sustains it. Systems protect you from the ups and downs of mood and keep you focused on what matters most. Success requires reliability, and reliability comes from structure, not emotion. I'm fascinated. When you build your life on disciplined systems rather than unpredictable feelings, you create a foundation strong enough to carry you through any challenge. At first, the idea that discipline creates freedom sounds contradictory. Fascinated. How can rules, structure, and restriction possibly lead to freedom? But when you look closely, you realize that discipline is not about limitation. It's about control. Fascinated. It's about mastering yourself so that you can direct your life rather than being controlled by distractions, impulses, or emotions. True freedom does not come from doing whatever you feel like. Fascinated. It comes from being able to do what needs to be done when it needs to be done. Discipline gives you that power. It builds strength, order, and stability, allowing you to make choices that serve your goals instead of your moods. I'm fascinated. When you live without discipline, you become a prisoner of your impulses. You do what feels good in the moment, scrolling endlessly on your phone, procrastinating, fascinated, skipping the hard tasks. But these small acts of comfort create long-term consequences. Over time, you lose control over your time, your focus, and your potential. That's not freedom. That's dependency. Fascinated. Every time you avoid discomfort, you give away a piece of your freedom. Discipline, however, works in the opposite way. It demands effort up front, but rewards you with control and peace later. When you choose to wake up early, fascinated, manage your schedule, eat healthy, or stick to your goals, you're exercising your ability to rule your own life. You're free because you're in charge. Discipline also gives you freedom from regret. Fascinated. Most people regret the things they didn't do more than the things they did. They look back and realize that laziness, distraction, or fear held them back from achieving their dreams. I'm fascinated. Discipline protects you from that pain because it ensures you take action even when you don't feel like it. You might not enjoy every discipline moment, but you'll always enjoy the results. Fascinated. The satisfaction of knowing you gave your best effort, kept your word, and made progress is a deeper kind of happiness, one that impulsive comfort can never provide. Freedom also comes from clarity, and discipline brings that clarity. Fascinated. When you have routines and boundaries, your mind is not scattered. You know your priorities, you know your direction, and you stop wasting time on unimportant things. Many people mistake chaos for freedom, fascinated, thinking that having no rules means they're free. But chaos only leads to confusion, stress, and wasted potential. Discipline simplifies your life. It eliminates distractions and creates order. Fascinated, allowing you to focus on what truly matters. This sense of direction brings peace and purpose, the real forms of freedom that impulsive living can never offer. Fascinated. Another kind of freedom that discipline brings is financial and emotional independence. When you're disciplined with your money, you save and invest rather than spend impulsively. Fascinated. That financial control gives you the freedom to make choices without fear of debt or dependency. When you're disciplined with your emotions, you respond calmly instead of reacting impulsively. Fascinated, that emotional control frees you from being ruled by anger, fear, or frustration. Discipline doesn't just make you productive, it makes you powerful because it allows you to maintain balance and strength when others lose control. Fascinated, discipline also gives you freedom to grow. Every skill, every talent, every achievement requires practice. Without discipline, you can't improve, and without improvement, you stay stuck. The person who practices daily, fascinated, studies consistently, or trains regularly is constantly unlocking new levels of ability. That growth expands your opportunities, your confidence, and your sense of purpose. Fascinated, discipline gives you the freedom to become who you're capable of being. It turns potential into progress and dreams into results. In the end, discipline doesn't restrict your life, it enhances it. It removes chaos. Fascinated builds structure and gives you the control to choose your own path. When you are disciplined, you are no longer at the mercy of laziness, fear, or temptation. You're free to build, create, and live on your own terms. Fascinated, discipline may feel like a burden in the beginning, but it is the very thing that opens the door to the deepest and most lasting kind of freedom, the freedom to live life with purpose, control, and peace. I'm fascinated. Champions are not made in moments of excitement or bursts of motivation. They are built in the quiet, unseen hours when there is no applause and no recognition. The true test of greatness is not what you do when you feel inspired. I'm fascinated, but what you do when you don't. Discipline is the difference between those who dream and those who achieve. Motivation may help you begin, but it cannot carry you through the grind, the repetition, or the fatigue that success requires. Fascinated. Champions are ordinary people who keep showing up even when their minds tell them to stop, even when their emotions beg them to quit. The moments when you feel least motivated are actually the most important moments of your journey. Fascinated. They are the times that test your commitment to your purpose. When everything feels difficult, when progress is slow, and when results are invisible, that's when discipline matters most. I'm fascinated. The ability to stay consistent through the dull, unexciting, and tiring days is what separates the best from the rest. Motivation fades in the face of discomfort, but discipline grows stronger through it. Every time you push through without motivation, you build mental toughness, resilience, and self-trust. Those qualities are what champions rely on when challenges arise. In sports, business, or any pursuit, I'm fascinated. The greatest performers understand that the path to mastery is repetitive and demanding. A professional athlete trains for years for a few minutes of performance. I'm fascinated. They practice the same moves hundreds of times, not because it's exciting, but because they know consistency breeds excellence. Motivation would never be enough for that kind of endurance. It's discipline that drives them. Fascinated. They don't need to feel like working. They've trained themselves to work because it's part of who they are. Champions have habits, not moods. They don't depend on a feeling, they depend on a standard. When you rely on motivation, fascinated, you're at the mercy of your emotions. Some days you'll feel powerful, but other days you'll feel drained, and your effort will reflect that inconsistency. Discipline, however, gives you stability. Fascinated, it teaches you to perform at your best regardless of how you feel. That's why the most successful people appear unstoppable. Not because they're always motivated, fascinated, because they've built systems and habits that don't require motivation. Their secret is not inspiration, it's commitment. They've learned to find strength in repetition and meaning in persistence. I'm fascinated. Champions are made in private, not in public. The hours of training when no one is watching, the nights spent studying when everyone else is asleep. Fascinated, the days spent improving when others are relaxing. Those are the moments that define success. The world only sees the result, not the process. But it's the process driven by discipline that creates the excellence everyone admires. I'm fascinated. Greatness is never the result of one big act. It's the accumulation of thousands of small, disciplined actions performed with intention and consistency. Another truth about discipline is that it teaches humility. Fascinated, motivation often comes from excitement and pride, the thrill of achievement. Discipline, on the other hand, demands patience and perseverance. It forces you to confront failure, boredom, and imperfection. Fascinated, champions understand that progress is not always glamorous. It's often quiet, steady, and slow. They embrace that truth and keep moving, knowing that mastery is built in the shadows before it shines in the spotlight. In the end, fascinated, what defines a champion is not talent or luck, but endurance. When others stop because motivation runs out, the disciplined keep going. When conditions aren't perfect, when emotions aren't supportive, and when success feels distant, fascinated, they still take one more step forward. That is the essence of greatness. To act not because you feel inspired, but because you are committed. Champions are made in the moments when no one is watching, when there is no energy left. Fascinated, and when quitting seems easier, discipline is their foundation, and that's why they succeed long after motivation has disappeared. Discipline is the foundation of all lasting success. Motivation may give you a spark, fascinated, but it fades with time, emotion, and circumstance. Discipline, however, remains steady. It keeps you moving forward when excitement disappears and challenges arise. It builds consistency, strengthens character, fascinated, and transforms goals into reality. Those who rely only on motivation achieve in moments. Those who rely on discipline achieve for a lifetime. True progress comes from doing what must be done, even when you don't feel like it. I'm fascinated. Every act of discipline strengthens your willpower and brings you closer to mastery. In the end, it is not the most inspired who win, but the most consistent, the ones who show up every single day, regardless of mood or motivation. Fascinated. Discipline beats motivation every time because it turns effort into habit and habit into greatness.